What is capitalism anyway? That's something about keeping markets free, right? Well, history has proven that capitalism is the most efficient and fair way to run an economy. But for capitalism to work, it has to have strong laws to protect people's ownership and free markets, markets that are not controlled by the government. Market competition leads to innovation and lowered prices. Thanks to capitalism, all of these things now fit in your pocket. There are 5 areas that capitalism cannot solve. 1, national defense. 2, healthcare. 3, care of the elderly and the young. 4, infrastructure. And 5, education. Let's look at why. Number 1, national defense. National defense has to be funded by a social program because everyone receives a benefit because everyone in the country is protected by national defense, but no one would voluntarily pay their fair share. That social program is called taxes. And the economic term for this problem in capitalism is the free rider problem. By the way, despite the hype, defense spending is going down. Health. The reason that healthcare must be supported by a social program is that free markets would tend to make people sick in order to make more profits. The economic term for this is moral hazard. What happens in the US, because we are ignoring basic economic principles, is, for example, pharmaceutical companies are making obscene profits on sick people. The moral hazard is not being addressed. Number 3, care of the powerless, the handicapped, the elderly, children. Well, capitalism cannot solve this because it would be wrong to make profits on caring for those who cannot care for themselves, and because none of us know when we ourselves might be powerless. We pool our resources to fund programs for the powerless. In classic capitalism terms, people have no economic value if they cannot work. But capitalism can only address economic value. People have more than just an economic value. Social Security is one program that recognizes this area that capitalism cannot address. Number 4, infrastructure. Capitalism cannot solve the problem of building public infrastructure because the return on investment is received by everyone. And no one would invest in projects such as highways because they would probably not live to see their investment realized. The economic term for that, we've seen this one before, the free rider problem. Everyone benefits from investment in infrastructure. Number 5, education. Well, it's easy to see how investment in our own education improves our economic prosperity, but it's very difficult to see how investment in others' education improves our personal lives, even though it is obvious a well-educated populace would improve general welfare. To add to the fact that capitalism cannot solve the problem of education, because the profits of education are difficult to measure, a republic, small r, which is what America is, must have an educated population that can think for themselves. Why? Because America is an idea. And the first enumerated right, the right to free speech, is founded on the right to be able to think. Education is not about teaching people what to think, but how to think well. The freedom is the freedom to think for oneself. This freedom is a social good for which we pool our resources to ensure that all people in our country get an education. By the way, education comes from the Latin educare and means to draw out. Education is about drawing out the genius in each person. It is a social good. In economic terms, this is called human capital. Capitalism is the best economic system, but it can't solve everything. When people speak of socialism in relation to these 5 areas, they're talking about the economic areas that capitalism cannot ever address. What they are usually saying is not radical, but actually basic capitalist economic theory. Originally written about in 1776 by Adam Smith. Thank you for your attention.